Starting this Thursday, we have the Overfunctioners group that Rita will be running. She's not going to be here this morning, but we have some flyers. So anybody is welcome, and it's free. It's from 7. I think it's from 7 to 8:30. It's a 6 weeks class. It's a support group, but she'll be educating you too. It's a great way to help you come to terms with learning to have better relationships with people. Also, next Saturday is when we have the tabernacle experience. It is next Saturday. And so I'll be sending out the information. You'll meet us at the place rather than us all going together. It doesn't make sense. So I will send out information this week as to what time. I think we're supposed to be there by 10. And she said to me, I think it's like 3 or 4 hours. But she said it's a really, really good experience. And Susan, you've done this, right?
I'm sorry, which one?
The tabernacle experience?
Yes. Are we going?
It's next Saturday.
Oh, okay.
So what did you think about it?
It was fascinating. I never even knew it was beautiful. It was very well done. They did everything to scale, according to the Bible. It's just beautiful.
Okay. I know he's an educator, too, from what his wife, or I don't know if this is his wife that I spoke to, but like he brings a lot of insight into that part of the scriptures. So just let us know if you're going, and I'll send you the information. So anyway, we're going to look at Philadelphia this morning. This is the 6th church that Jesus addresses. And I want to just, again, remember there are 4 different methods of interpretation. And I don't know if I need to go through this again, but I want you to understand that different people have different perspectives of the same passages. They come to different conclusions. Then we have the 7 letters to the 7 churches. There's a literal experience, there's a spiritual, and then there's the historical. And all of those things are important because there is a literal church that he writes these letters to, and there is spiritual implications to them and to us. And then the historical is where we look at each one of these churches that represent a certain time of history within the church itself. These are the church periods. So Ephesus is called the Apostolic Church. That was from 30 AD to 100 AD. That was Pentecost to 100 AD. Smyrna, the Roman persecution, that was the martyr church. That was 100 to 313 AD. Pergamum, the age of Constantine, the compromised church that became the state church. Then we get to Thyatira, which is the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages. It's the real birth of the Roman Catholic Church and all that came with it. Sardis, we get back to 1517. It's the beginning of the Protestant Reformation, the Great Awakening. And now we're in Philadelphia. We're going to elaborate on the Great Awakening. It's called the missionary movement. And that's from 1750. We can go up to 1900, but it's still today because we are still present. It's the evangelical church, that's us, that comes on the scene. And then next week we'll look at or 2 weeks, I guess, the apostate church. And that's where liberalism comes into the church, and there's all different understandings now of what the word is. And that's also from 1900 to the present time, to the rapture. Yay. So let me read this to you, and then I'll tell you a little bit about Philadelphia. So our text is Revelation 3, verses 7 through 13. It says, to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens no man can shut, and what he shuts no one can open. I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, whose claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are liars, I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. Since you have kept my command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come upon the whole world to test those who live on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have so that no one will take your crown. Him who overcomes, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will he leave it. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on him my new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So we're right now at the church that is patiently enduring despite wickedness. That is what we're seeing growing more and more within the world right now. So the timeline, when we finish next week or the week after with Laodicea, that will complete the church age. The pre-tribbers believe that the rapture happens right after the church age finishes. And I'm going to tell you about three different perspectives, and there are lots of smaller perspectives within each one of those perspectives, but I'm going to just focus on three of them. So here's Philadelphia. Philadelphia was, it's kind of interesting, the background on Philadelphia. I love learning this because it gives so much understanding to what the Word says and why Jesus specifically said specific things to each one of those cities. And we tend to throw those passages out a lot. I do it also when we say, God has opened a door that no man can shut and he closes the door that no man can open. And this is where we draw that from. And there's also in Isaiah, you'll see the same thing. But why did he say that? Why did he say those things? What was important about that church? Because there were other Philadelphias that were around at that time. But this is the Philadelphia that he was addressing. So Philadelphia was established 2 centuries before Christ by King Eumenes II of Pergamum, who named the city for the love of his brother. We call it the city of brotherly love, but he actually named it because he loved his brother so much. His brother's name was Atlas II. His Atlas was so loyal to his brother that's the reason he named the city after him. And the nickname was also Philadelphus, and it literally means one who loves his brother. The city is very strategic. It was, as you see here, it was 30 miles southeast of Sardis in Asia Minor, near this mountain called Tmolus, by a Kagamus river. Today, it's hidden under this modern city called Alashir. It's situated about 75 miles east of the Aegean Sea coast, which where it's located is really important. The town is, or was, on one of the greatest trade routes in the world, linking Asia, Europe, and Asia together. And this was a deliberate location that the city was developed in. It was a strongly fortified city, and it held the key to the door through which all east-west trade and commerce passed. That's why it was called the key. King Atlas designed Philadelphia for commerce and to be a missionary city through which Greek language, the whole point here was so that it was a missionary city, it was all the surrounding areas, it was to teach them Greek language and to teach them the Greek culture. It was a city that was a center of great refinement. It had a lot of great things going for it. You can say that Philadelphia was an open door to those regions, which is really interesting because Jesus says to this church, "See, I placed before you an open door." That was the testimony of the city, that they were open door to all the other cities. The city was strategically placed as a place to continue bringing the culture out. And Jesus is saying to these people, this is your mission. You have the same mission. They were known for the beautiful buildings. There was an ancient historian, his name was Strabo, He said it was the little Athens at that time. Jesus said that the goal for the church, they were a mission church, they were to take the culture of Christ, the culture of the church, into the surrounding areas so that they would be awakened to who Christ is. It was rich in mineral hot springs. Philadelphia had a health spa for tourists who came for its medical waters. They also created a salve that we still use on our eyes today. So if we have eyes to see, put the salve on your eyes. Ancient Philadelphia was subject to a lot of volcanic eruptions, had a lot of earthquakes. And back in 17 AD, which we read last week about Sardis also, it was destroyed by this earthquake. Philadelphia had become at this point part of the Roman Empire. The city was to be rebuilt, and it was rebuilt by the Roman Emperor Tiberius, and became the center of Christianity, believe it or not, until the 1400s. So in gratitude, Philadelphians renamed the town, Philadelphia, they renamed it to Neo Caesarea, the new city of Caesar, but later reverted back to the original name. The cost of repairing this city was so great, and the people were so heavily taxed, that the citizens now became poor. It became a very poverty-stricken area. It was a Roman town until 1379 AD, and it fell into the hands of the Turks after persistent resistance. The Turkish city, it has a new name, is called Alashir, and it means the city of God. It stands on the site of this old city, so it literally took over over that city. So if you look at this, these are said to be an entrance to the church. That back there is a mosque. So the city is now, there are still Christians, but it's really Islam at this point. That's about, there's very little left that you can see of the city anymore. So Philadelphia was considered the Great Awakening. So in 1750, the Great Awakening, the missionary church, which is what we're looking at, and then we're going to get to 1900 next time, and that's apostate church. So the Church of Philadelphia, it's titled, this is Jesus' title, He is holy and true, holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut, or what he shuts, no one can open. The commendation, they had little strength, kept God's word, and did not deny his name. There was no complaint at all about this city. The reward to the overcomers, they are kept from the hour of trial coming upon the whole world, and they are made a pillar, and God's name will be written on him or her. So it's really interesting. These are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens, no man can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. The word true, first of all, the word holy here, it has two different implications. One is ceremonial, and the other one is moral. So the ceremonial side of the holy is you and I are holy. We're set apart. We're distinct. We're different. And that's how God is. But it's also the moral, and it's really speaking more about being pure. This is the moral interpretation or word holy. And it's about being utterly pure. So when Jesus is saying that he is holy, he's utterly pure. There is nothing that is not pure in him. And the word true also has two meanings. It can mean not false, or it can mean genuine. There are two Greek words for the word true. So in this particular passage, he's not saying that he's not false, that he's not making something up. He is actually saying that he is genuine and that he will never betray them. So he says, so him who is holy, who is absolutely, utterly pure and is true, everything he's saying is genuine. He will never, never leave us. When we look at the phrase that he says he's the key of David, which is interesting, if we go back to Isaiah 22:22, this particular passage in Scripture in Isaiah 22, God is speaking about a man. His name is Eliakim, and he is the son of Hilkiah. It's recorded, and this is what it says in Isaiah 22. I will place on his shoulder the key of the house of David. What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open. Eliakim had the key, this guy's son, had the key to all the treasures of the king. So when he opened the door, it was open. And when he closed the door, it was closed. So Christ, who is the great antitype of Eliakim, has the key and the truth and holiness as well as the opportunity and service. So he is the one that can open and close doors. But when we look at the things, if we look at these churches, and as we go on, as we start getting into chapter 4, there's all these references made to the Old Testament. So God has been speaking all these years. So what Christ does in this particular place, he says, I am assuring you that I have the power, that I am the one who is pure. I am the one who is, not only am I not a liar, but I am faithful. Verse 8 says, I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, that you have kept my word and have not denied my name. So Jesus tells them that he opened the door of evangelistic opportunity. He's telling them, your mission, I am the one that has opened this door for you. And they have to go through with their faith. And there's another way of looking at this, and there's actually a third way. It seems that Christians in Philadelphia were excluded from the synagogue. So the open door may also speak of their opportunity to enter God's kingdom, in contrast to the exclusion from the church. So what happened during this time is that originally when these people migrated to these areas, these Jews and these Christians, the Christians were still considered part of the sect of Judaism. But at one point, after we start looking at back in, we see Nero, and then we see Domitian, we see all these kings that are now persecuting the Christians. The Jews wanted no part of them, so they would separate them. So when they would come into the temple, when they would try to come into the temple, because that's where their friends were, that's where that was their community, they would not let them in. They would close the door. And so Jesus is saying to them, they may not let you in, but I brought you into my kingdom. And then when he says they have little strength, the little strength does not mean that they're weak. What it literally means is that they have real strength. They were weak enough to be strong in the Lord. Listen, we're at a time right now, guys. We need to be strong in the Lord. What else do we have? Seriously, what do we have? We can be too strong, too big, or too sure of ourselves for God to really be able to use us. The church in Philadelphia had the poverty of spirit to know that they really needed God's strength. I don't know about you, but man, I've been there. Verse 9 says, I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are lies, I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. So Jesus is condemning these Philadelphian believers, or these Jews, and he's telling us that they are religious hypocrites. How many times did Jesus address the religious leaders? Over and over and over again, you're a bunch of whitewashed tombs. We have the appearance of being godly, but inside we're dirty rags. You know, I had to think about something. It says that I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you. You know, doesn't it kind of remind you of Joseph? You know, remember Joseph had a dream and he came out and, you know, he told his brothers and his father and they were kind of angry with him and then they wound up killing him because remember the sheets were bowing down to him. And in the end, even though their brothers tried to kill him, God used that, took him from that place where he had grown, where he was part of a community, put him in an entirely different place that he was unfamiliar with. But God had trained him with his father before he was taken. And so when it came around, and his brothers literally did bow down to him, didn't they? And I don't know that people are going to bow down to us. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that God had his way, and what God said happened. So what is God saying to you? Your business, your home, your children, your friends. You may be like a Joseph. God is saying something to you, and the people around you are going, yeah, sure. You're cuckoo. But like Joseph, and like it says here, that God will make it clear that he loves us. Verse 10, since you have kept my command to endure patiently, I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come upon the whole world to test those who live on the earth. This is where we get into tribulation. So most Bible scholars see the hour of trial as a prophetic reference to the messianic woes, the great tribulation, which precede Jesus' earthly kingdom. Jesus promises to keep these Christians from the hour of trial. So these are the only three I'm really going to focus on, unless I feel it's necessary to bring something else in. So the pre-tribulation, and I'm going to get more in depth as we get on. The pre-tribulation is before the tribulation, the end of the church age. So pre-tribbers, I'd like to be a pre-tribber, thank you very much. Yeah. Is before all of this stuff happens. And we're called out even before all of it happens. The mid-tribbers, they believe they're here for the first 3 years. What happened to the rest of my word? It's during this time that there is a counterfeit peace. And then the post-tribulation is believed that the rapture and the second coming of Jesus had happened simultaneously and after the tribulation. But what most people believe, that if they're here for the tribulation, that God will protect them. And there are other beliefs within each one of those beliefs. So we all have an opinion. The truth is, we'll know when it happens. If I have anything to say about it, I'm a pre-tribber. Thank you very much, Lord. But I don't know. So when it says, keep you from the hour of trial, so does this imply an escape before the Great Tribulation, or does it promise protection in it, which is what some believe? Each sides of the passage, they each have enough, they even use the same scriptures and to support their belief. So, but what we'll get into, we'll look at some of the scriptures that will support it. For example, Daniel 9:27, he talks about the 70 weeks. We're going to look at the 70 weeks. So it says, he will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. In the middle of the sevens, he will put an end to the sacrifice and offering. We'll look at what that means as we go on. Matthew 24:21 through 22 says, for then there will be a great distress, unequal, speaking about the end times, unequal from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one could survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. He goes on in verse 11, he says, I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have so that no one will take your crown. So the church is here, he's saying to them, listen, you need to continue to be faithful. If we look at 1 Thessalonians, I want to read this scripture to you, several scriptures. 1 Thessalonians 4:13 through 18. He's talking about being faithful, and it's about the tribulation. He says, he who exhorts himself, he says, brothers, we do not want you to be ignorant about those who fall asleep, or to grieve like the rest of men who have no hope. We believe that Jesus died and rose again, so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. According to the Lord's own word, we tell you that we who are still alive, who are left till the coming of the Lord, will certainly not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage each other with these words. So, the belief is after the church age that let me just go back here a minute. That at the end of the church age, Jesus will go up and Jesus will meet us. And then we'll go with him. All of these things, the 7-year tribulation, will happen. Then Jesus returns. And then the millennium reign of 1,000 years happens. We see the Antichrist. And then the great white throne of judgment happens. So there are all these things that we're expecting to happen, and everybody's got, not everybody, there are many different perspectives. So we'll look at those as we go through it. But I want you to understand that when we talk about pre-tribbies, we're looking right here, right before the 7-year tribulation begins. So it says, hold fast to what you have. So the Church of Philadelphia is told not to depart from its foundation. Remember what your foundation is. So what they were told to do, 3 things. They were evangelistic. I've set before you an open door. They had to rely on God because of their strength that they needed from him, and their faithfulness to Jesus because they had kept the word and have not denied his name. These things can and must continue among the Church of Philadelphia and us. That is our commission. This is exactly what we are called to do. No different than the Church of Philadelphia. When Jesus said that you were born again, and he told his disciples or his apostles, he sent them out. He has sent us out to do the same thing. We are to be the witness. We are to be the hands and the feet, the face of the Lord to a dying world. You know, they should be able to look at us, see us as different than they see everybody else. We should be leading, not following. We should look different than the rest of the world. Verse 12 says, he who overcomes, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will he leave it. I will write on him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on him my new name. So he who overcomes, I will make him a pillar. Overcomers were told that they would be pillars in the temple of God. Pillars were pictures of strength and ability and dignity. They were beautiful. But you know, what happened in this particular city was that there were all these earthquakes. And the things that they found were pillars that were still standing. And he was saying to them, you know, you are that in my kingdom. So these pillars hold up buildings. The only thing supporting the pillars is the foundation. So whatever your foundation determines what you are. So true pillars in the church, they support the church, and they look to Jesus as the support, their foundation. Verse 13 says, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So those who struggle with weakness, Jesus makes everlasting pillars in the house of God. It doesn't mean we can't struggle. It doesn't mean it can't be a challenge. It means that we are to lay firm on that foundation. We are to stand on that foundation. The Bible tells us that we can do all things, and right in Philippians 4:13, he says, stick with me. I will make you a pillar as long as you stand on me. Your strength and your ability and your beauty rests on me. Okay, I want to go back to this. So now I want us to look at historically what has this church taught us. So there are 4 great awakenings that have happened The first is in 1730, 40, 50, around there. You have Jonathan Edwards, John and Charles Wesley, and George Whitefield. It says that many historians claim that this Great Awakening influenced the Revolutionary War by encouraging the nations of nationalism and individual rights. The revival also led to the establishment of several renowned educational institutions like Princeton, Rutgers, Brown, and Dartmouth. The Second Awakening happened around 1790 to about 1840. This is James Edward. The Second Great Awakening was a Protestant religious revival during the 19th century in the United States. It began in New England. The Second Great Awakening can be divided into three phases. The first phase, 1795 to 1810, was associated with the frontier camp meetings conducted by American preachers James McGready, John McGee, and Barton W. Stone in Kentucky and Tennessee. The second and the more conservative phase of the awakening, 1810 to 25, centered in the Congregational churches of New England under the leadership of theologians Timothy Dwight and Lyman Beecher, Nathaniel W. Taylor, and Ashla Nettleton. The third and the final phase, 1825 to 35, stemmed from the activists of the evangelist Charles Grandson Finney, Grandson Finney, who began his revivalism in small towns in western New York in the 1820s, but eventually conducted revivals in the largest cities in the United States and Britain. They were said that there were like over 100,000 people that were saved during that time. It said, let me read this to you. The Second Great Awakening, which spread religion through revivals and emotional preaching, sparked a number of reform movements. Ordinary people, I love this, ordinary people were encouraged to make a personal connection with God instead of relying on a minister. The new evangelical movement, however, placed great emphasis on the human's ability to change their situation for the better, by stressing that individuals could assert their free will in choosing to be saved, and by suggesting that salvation was open to all human beings. The Second Great Awakening embraced a more optimistic view of the human condition, Charles Finley. He began to spread the message in Western New York in early 1820s, 1835. He became a professor of theology at Oberlin College in Ohio. So, again, there were several colleges that were founded at that time. The Third Awakening took place in 1855 to 1930, the Great Awakening. So, in 1904-05, it was the Welsh Revival. It said this: much like the First and the Second Awakenings, this time period experienced a resurgence in religious interest and vigor. The Great Prayer Meeting Revival of 1857-58 was the catalyst and carried into the 1870s as Dwight Moody's urban campaigns spread across the United States. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Third Awakening was marked by the rise of holiness and Pentecostal movements, along with the popularity of Billy Sunday's sermons drawing in large crowds. Significant names were Dwight L. Moody, Ira Sankley, William Booth, Catherine Booth, founders of Salvation Army, Charles Spurgeon, James Cogley, Hudson Taylor began in China in the Inland Missions, and Thomas John Bernardo founded his famous orphanages. Similar to the previous awakenings, the Third Great Awakening helped reinvigorate religious education through the founding of various Bible colleges and seminaries, including the Moody Bible Institute, Bob Jones College, and the Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. Now, when we come into the Fourth Great Awakening, which we are part of, by the way, this is Billy Graham, the Jesus Movement, Chuck Smith, Calvary Chapel. Paul, remember you put on his, every Sunday, we get up in the morning, you put on his sermons? Chuck Smith, that is. Let's see, Philadelphia. This whole movement, millions were saved and is still being saved right now. So there are all these movements that have taken place, and they're continuing to grow. But what we'll see next time is there was this diversion. There was, when you look at the apostate church, so you have all of this, God is blessing all of this. I mean, this is a time in history where God really blessed his church. He opened the door for a great move of God. I mean, we were part of the Jesus. I was part of the Jesus movement, and I can remember being in high school, and I remember songs. The Hollies had a song out about Jesus. There was another group that had another song about Jesus, and I loved those songs. I remember babysitting and those songs, and I was like, yeah, I love this Jesus, because it was, and that was on secular radio. And I remember, do you remember there was a song, well, I don't know about all you guys, but there was a song, "They're coming to take you away, ha ha, ha ha." Do you remember that song? Remember they took it off the air? They took it off the air because it made fun of crazy people. But, so they were taking that stuff off, but the Jesus movement was alive and well. Really, I mean, I love going to these meetings. I mean, the first time after I got saved, going into I don't even know where I was. I went with some people that I had met down in Florida after I gotten saved. And the music, oh my gosh, it was awesome. It was something I was so familiar with, but it was all about the Lord. It was so, I remember sitting in this I don't know, theater, and just listening to these people worship God. I had gone to I had seen so many performers, like all these. I went to a lot of concerts. I used to went to New York City with the guy who was my boyfriend at the time. He was a musician. And every Saturday at Central Park, there were concerts. The Kinks were there. Everybody. There were so many people. The Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I don't know if you guys remember any of those people. But, I mean, I love that music. And, I mean, we just saw so many people. I remember going to see the Rolling Stones and just seeing all these different types of people. So when I went to this in this theater, and I'm listening to these people sing about Jesus, it like blew my mind. It was so awesome. It's like, wow. Because of what I grew up in, I thought Jesus was a mealy-mouthed little, he was a martyr. No thanks, I don't want to be a martyr. Been there, done that, no thanks. But when I discovered that he was this powerful God, and that people saw how powerful he was and who he was, and that his death on the cross was a choice, wow, not as a martyr, but for me, for you, it was with a purpose. Not because he was some good guy, it was because he was God. And then to see these people worshiping him and being part of that movement and watching people being touched, so touched, watching people myself included, just being delivered, profoundly changing my life. That's what I want. Don't you want that? I mean, we haven't even seen yet what God can do. That's according to the Word, right? We haven't even seen it yet. But as this is going on, Satan is the great imitator, isn't he? So we have the apostate church that we're going to start develop. And we're going to see, and it's alive and well today. And it's getting stronger every day because we have stepped back. It's like everybody else came out of the closet and we went in. So when Jesus is commanding, he's telling me, hey, you guys are doing a great job. But that is what I did. I opened a door for you that no man can shut. These people that say all this stuff about you, they think they've got the answer. They'll see. That's really what he's telling us. Be true to what you know is true. Stand on the foundation that you have established with the Lord. If he is not your foundation, we can't make it. I don't know how you can make it without him being the foundation. I don't know what's coming. I want pre-trib, Lord, if I have a choice. So I tell you all of that. We are in a real battle. At some point, it's going to end. That's what it says. At some point, it's going to end. Where are you standing? It's going to be a decision that you and I are going to have to make someday. So as we learn next time about the apostate church, you need to keep in mind that God has given you everything you need. That's what it says. Everything you need for salvation and life. So if we keep looking out there for the answers, we're looking in the wrong place. Would you guys agree with that? We are the missionary church. That's who we are. But like those people who had little strength, but had a lot of strength because they relied on the Lord, that's us. We have to rely on the Lord because it's getting pretty dark. I asked Paul to put a song on for me, and I don't remember what the name is. Do you remember what it is? No, this is really bad. I had so much going on yesterday. Okay, but I want you to stand.